Éducation en coopération avec l'UNICEF qui se tient en Égypte en présence du Premier ministre Mostafa Madbouly.
Sabah al-Khair, good morning, and a very warm welcome to all of you on this important day. Your Excellency, Dr. Mostafa Madbouly, Prime Minister of the Arab Republic of Egypt, Your Excellency, Mr. Mohammed Abdel Latif, Minister of Education and Technical Education, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, Ms. Natalia Windarossi, UNICEF representative to Egypt, esteemed colleagues from the United Nations representatives, Dr. Mahmoud Mohyeldin, United Nations Special Envoy on Financing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, Ms. Esohi Igbik, Country Engagement Lead for Egypt at the Global Partnership for Education, leaders and representatives of our international development partners, education leaders, policymakers and practitioners, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to welcome you this morning to the St. Regis new capital for this important event, Securing Egypt's Future Through Education Reform, Evidence, Progress, and the Way Forward. We gather today at a defining moment in Egypt's education journey, a moment that brings together the highest levels of our national leadership, our trusted partners from the United Nations and the international development community, and the dedicated practitioners and experts who have made the reforms of the past 2 years possible. Your Excellency, Mr. Prime Minister, allow me, on behalf of the Ministry of Education and Technical Education, UNICEF, and every person gathered in this room, to thank you most sincerely for honoring us with your presence today. Your participation is far more than ceremonial. It is a powerful national affirmation that education sits at the very heart of Egypt's Vision 2030, at the heart of our economic ambition, our social progress, and our shared commitment to the children and young people. Your Excellency, Minister Abdel Latif, on behalf of all who have benefited from the reforms led by your ministry, thank you for your vision, your leadership, and your tireless commitment to the children and young people of Egypt. The progress we are here to discuss today is in no small part a testament to your stewardship. And to our partners, UNICEF, the United Nations Country Team, and every international organization represented here today, thank you for standing alongside Egypt as true and steadfast partners on this journey. Ladies and gentlemen, 2 years ago, Egypt embarked on one of the most ambitious education transformations in our region. The challenge was substantial. The 2021 comprehensive analysis of the education sector described a system under significant strain. Overcrowded classrooms, pressure on teaching capacity, gaps in attendance, and many children schooling but not learning. Many in the international community looked at the scale of that challenge and recognized its complexity. But Egypt, under the patronage of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, moved forward with courage and clarity of purpose. This event is the result of a deep and enduring partnership between the government of Egypt and the United Nations, led on the UN side by UNICEF, in close coordination with sister UN agencies. Over many months, UNICEF and the UN country team have conducted a rigorous rapid assessment of education reform implementation in close collaboration with the ministry. The findings of that assessment, which you will hear shortly, tells a compelling story of system-wide momentum, of changes reaching classrooms and communities across Egypt, and of children whose lives and learning are genuinely being transformed. Allow me now to briefly walk you through the morning ahead. We will begin with our keynote presentation delivered by the UNICEF team, a rigorous, evidence-based account of the progress of Egypt's reform between 2024 and 2026. This is the analytical heart of our morning. Following the keynote, we will hear reflections from the international community, from Ms. Isohi Igbik, Country Engagement Lead for Egypt at the Global Partnership for Education, and from Dr. Mahmoud Mohieldin, United Nations Special Envoy on Financing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We will then hear an address by Ms. Natalia Windarossi, UNICEF representative to Egypt, Transforming Education, a Brighter Future for Children in Egypt, on how the partnership will continue to stand alongside Egypt in this journey. We will then be honored to hear from His Excellency, Mr. Mohammed Abdel Latif, Minister of Education and Technical Education, who will reflect on Egypt's education system as it stands today and the direction it will take in the years ahead. We will then be deeply privileged to receive an address by His Excellency, the Prime Minister of the Arab Republic of Egypt, focused on investment in education as a driver of economic development, a message of the highest national significance. Following His Excellency, the Prime Minister's address, we will move into the media engagement segment. Excellencies, distinguished guests, today is about all of us, government, partners, and society, reaffirming our collective efforts to those children. Today is about evidence, today is about progress, and today is about the way forward. Without further delay, allow me now to invite the UNICEF team to the stage to deliver the keynote presentation on the evidence and progress of Egypt's education reform from 2024 to 2026. Delivering this keynote will be three members of the UNICEF team: Mr. Shiraz Chakira, Chief of Education at UNICEF in Egypt; Dr. Amin Merai, Education Reform Study Consultant at UNICEF, and researcher and lecturer at the Harvard Graduate School of Education; and Ms. Chao Wong, Education Economist and Policy Officer at UNICEF in Egypt. Please join me in welcoming them.
Good morning, Your Excellencies, colleagues, partners, and friends. Your Excellency, the Prime Minister, it is a deep honor to be able to be speaking to you today about this study. Your Excellency, the Minister of Education, thank you. Thank you for your vision, your energy, your partnership with us, and your trust. It is a real privilege to be here today. My name is Shiraz Chakira. I'm the Chief of Education for UNICEF Egypt. I've worked in education for around 25 years and had the privilege of working in many continents, many countries, from UK to India to Eastern and Southern Africa to the United States. And I say this not to list places, but because I've seen many education systems in many different stages of reform. And I can say that in moments like this, where we begin to see system-wide change at scale, are actually quite unique. Today we are sharing the results of a rapid assessment of the Egypt education reforms, but more than that, we're telling a story of real change happening here in Egypt, inside Egypt's education system. This has been a collective effort. This has been a collective effort across the ministry, across schools, across communities, and with partners. It's also been an effort of multiple people within UNICEF. I'll be joined as part of this presentation by two colleagues, Chao Wang and Dr. Amin Marai, who I'll introduce in a moment. They have done a huge amount of work of the thinking and the technical heavy lifting for the study. Between us, we will take you through what has changed, how we know that change has made impact and is national, why it matters, and what needs to happen next. Let me start by saying this clearly. We are confident that the education system is being restored. What we are seeing is a story of transformation. It has been rapid, and it has required the tireless effort of all, from the minister right down to every teacher, parents, students across the country. And importantly, the reforms are being experienced in schools across the country and are widely supported by principals and teachers. So what does this mean? It means we're in a unique moment, a moment where genuine system transformation is possible. But that transformation will only be sustained if we continue with focus, investment, and commitment from us all. So when I say that the system has been restored, let me make that concrete with the numbers you see on the slides. Attendance from 15% to 87% now. Class sizes in the area that had the greatest pressure, primary schools, from over 60 to 40. Classrooms with over 100 students eliminated. Teacher gaps addressed. Learning time dramatically increased by 58%. Literacy strongly improving, and there's other learning gains as well. Now these numbers are quite dramatic and perhaps optimistic. And you may say they're too good to be true. But that's why we're here, to validate these figures. UNICEF's rapid assessment, supported by UN sister agencies and other partners, and built on the ministry's openness with their data, is all about assessing these numbers, all about assessing whether this data is valid and happening at scale across the country. But before we dive into the findings, let's go back to the beginning of the story. What was happening in the system before the reforms? What challenges were being faced? And why was it so important to address them in the first place? Because without understanding that, it's difficult to fully appreciate the significance of what we're seeing today. So let me hand over to my dear colleague, Chao Wang, who is an education economist at UNICEF and an education officer in the UNICEF Egypt team, who will go through the story from before to where we are now. Thank you very much, Chao.
Thank you, Shiraz. I wanted to start the story with one piece of research that struck me most when I first came to Egypt in 2024. So, as you can see here, the economic returns to education was far below the global average. What does this mean in practical terms? It means with one additional years of schooling, your earning only increased by 3.4% in Egypt, compared to around 9% globally. So I remember asking myself, why? Of course, there are many economic and social factors behind this. But as an education economist, I naturally first look at the education system. Then I look at the education sector analysis conducted by the UNICEF and the Ministry of Education and Technical Education in 2021, and the picture became very clear. Low student attendance, short school days, large class sizes, and teacher shortages. The basic conditions for learning were under pressure. So, it was not surprising that the learning outcomes at that time were below the international benchmark. What the Ministry of Education has been doing is rebuilding the conditions that make learning possible, bringing students back to school, reduce classroom density, addressing teacher shortage, and extending the school year. At the same time, advancing system-wide curricular reforms and literacy interventions. That matters beyond education, because when learning improves, countries grow. Global evidence shows, should be the previous one. Global evidence actually shows that even moderate improvements in learning outcomes can generate substantial economic returns, with GDP gains estimated at 5 to 36% over the medium to long term. So, what we are talking about today is not an education story. It is a story of national development. And with that, let me hand over to Dr. Amin to take us deeper into the national development story.
Okay, I can start. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukran. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Your Excellencies, it's an incredible privilege to be with you here today. My name is Amin Mar'i, and I'm the lead researcher on this assessment. In the past 7 months, I've had the privilege of working on the reforms, asking questions, evaluating what's happening. And I think after the assessment, I can reasonably say that the current reforms are some of the most comprehensive and system-wide reforms that have happened in the past decade, not just in the region, but around the world. And I'm happy to also respond to any questions about that. You might ask why, for 3 reasons. One of them is the breadth. The reforms have addressed the 27 governorates all at once, multi-layers within the system. They also addressed the depth, not just classroom attendance, curricular reform, teacher professional development, teacher pay, all at once. And not only that, which is the third thing, doing all of that within the period of around 2 years. Other reforms around the world, even if they wanted to address some of these areas, sometimes just the planning and the design might take 2 to 3 years. So I'm sure you asked right now, since we're mentioning all these reforms, so what are the actual reforms? So the reform rests on a simple, ambitious idea. You want to make sure that you're restoring the foundations of the system. You want to make sure that students are back so that they can actually learn, while also focusing on the future, doing both at once. So there are 4 main pillars, basically, that are leading this reform process. The first thing, and most importantly, is attendance. Attendance were tackled through the reforms, through the weekly assessments, making sure that students are present, are being evaluated in a way that advances their learning. That's the first thing. The second thing is classroom density. So addressing the expanding process of addressing classroom density was done through several innovative ideas. One of them was finding ways to repurpose existing spaces to become classrooms. So 45,000 existing spaces were repurposed as classrooms. 55,000 existing classrooms were put back in service. So in total, around 98,000 classrooms were created or went back to service through this process, which, if you were thinking about it in terms of scale, this is equivalent to 20%. 20% of the classrooms that were created through this process or repurposed through this process in 1 year. 20%. If you're thinking about the equivalent of that, according to the ministry's data, in terms of monetary value, the equivalent amount would be, again, according to the ministry's data, adjusted for inflation, would be around 2.5 to 3 billion dollars. That's billion with a B. 2.5 to 3 billion dollars just through this process. Again, it doesn't mean that we're there. It means that we just want to acknowledge the fact that this process was done through this time. So the other thing that was done is also teacher shortage. So before the reforms, there were around 467,000 teachers in terms of the deficit. How was this addressed? It was addressed through per-session teachers, was addressed through finding also creative ways to bring teachers back to teaching by incentivizing them. And all of that was able to cover the deficit within 2 years. The last thing is also doing all of that while making sure that teachers are supported through teacher professional development and also through teachers' incentives, which was around 1,000 EGPs that were offered to full-time teachers. Again, all of the foundational areas were done, not just only, but also with the future skills. So the ministry focused on working on an AI curriculum for high school students, financial literacy, revamping the curricula. And if you're asking, around 100 curricula were reformed during that time. Again, very impressive. And as Shiraz is going to explain, we've actually seen that with the data too. So I'm not sharing something that's just like the ministry sharing that. We've asked once, we've asked twice, and we wanted to make sure that this is what we're seeing on the ground. So again, you think about those four pillars. The core idea, based on my conversation with His Excellency, is to make sure that children are present. Children are beginning to learn, continuing to learn. The system is being restored, and we're ready for the future. So you might ask, what are the questions? What were we trying to ask through this study? We were asking, are children showing up? Are they present? We were asking, are there adequate conditions and environments for learning? Is teacher capacity sufficient? Do we need to offer teachers more support? And if so, in what ways? And we find that the early signals, and I want to also clarify here, these are early signals. A lot of that is also based on perceptions of teachers, school leaders. Again, more than happy to discuss the methodology with anyone, but obviously this is something that's going to take a long period of time. But these are early signs that are very promising. And like I shared, there's data about the classroom. There's also really compelling data about attendance, from 15% to 87%. Massive change. Through the 7 data points, focus groups, interviews, surveys with 12,000 teachers, surveys with 12,000 teachers, surveys with 2,500 school leaders across the 27 governorates, randomized. When you ask them, what's the most recurring theme? Attendance. Shows up across the data, not the same people. Interviews, focus groups, everyone's agreeing that attendance, children are back, which is a massive change. Again, think about it, from 15% to 87. By the way, we chose a sample also for attendance, and we went back 3 years. Still very similar data. So you might be asking also, why are they back? Assessments are a massive reason why they're back. Because right now they need to be present, they need to show how they're learning. And that's across, again, all the data. It's very clear. When you ask teachers, school leaders, why are they back? They tell you one of the main reasons is assessment. I think now it's important time also to humanize this process, the data, because otherwise I'm just sharing numbers. So I'm going to share with you an actual quote from one of the focus groups of what this means in terms of the reform itself. So I'm going to read. This is the translated response to one of the teachers. In 2023, there was only a monthly exam. So girls didn't bother attending, didn't show up. With the weekly and daily assessments, they study from day one, and they study to learn. This is just one voice, and we've seen similar themes across the data. And here's what's striking, is that these reforms, again, we want to make sure that students are there, that teachers are there, but there are already also areas where we're seeing impact in terms of literacy, in terms of numeracy, as also my colleagues is going to share. And I think we need to continue to focus on these areas, continue to focus on how we can support and advance learning, to make sure that people are present, that we're able to advance Egypt's future through those reforms and beyond. Again, very briefly, the methodology, because I don't want to bore you with the process. We interviewed and we had focus groups with multiple teachers. We had randomized sampling, so again, more than happy to discuss the process. But I also want to make sure that I acknowledge my colleagues at the Ministry of Education and Technical Education, my colleagues at the NCEEE. I know that our team asked you multiple questions. I know that we kept searching for data. I know that the process of asking you to go to 27 governorates based on our randomized stratified sample required a lot of effort. And some of this research, by the way, was even done through Ramadan, which obviously makes it even more challenging. But just wanted to acknowledge that, because this collaborative spirit, I think, is a great model for Egypt and also for other countries to collaborate with other agencies to find ways to make sure that we're advancing students and teachers at the center. So without further ado, I know I've been offering you some ideas about these reforms and the impact. I'm going to hand it back over to Shiraz Shakira to share with you more details about the findings and reforms.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amin. So what we've just seen is three important things. First, the structure and intent of the reform. Second, the nature of the assessment that we did. And third, the rigor of the data and our confidence in the results. You've started to get a flavor of what we've learnt, and I'm going to go into a bit more detail. So what is actually happening inside the education system? Let me take you through the evidence. If I can have the slides back up. If I can go back, whoever's controlling the slides, about 4 slides back, please. To the slide entitled Children Are Back at School. So while it's being pulled up, the first question, fundamental question, are children back at school? One slide back, please. Okay, great, we're on track. Perfect. Are children back at school? The answer is very clearly yes. Around 3/4 of teachers report improved attendance. Over 80% of school principals in our survey. Remember, 12,000 teachers, 2,500 school leaders we spoke to across the country in all 27 governorates. They said attendance was back. This reaffirms what we learnt when we looked at the administrative data. This is not just a number. Across interviews and discussions, attendance wasn't just one of many improvements, it was consistently identified as the most important change of the year. So children are back, and that matters because without that, the education system cannot do anything. So how? That leads to the question of what brought children back? The simple answer is weekly assessments tied to grades. Nearly all teachers themselves point to this. The fact that the return of weekly assessments linked to grades is what brought kids back. Now this sounds quite technical, but it's actually really simple. It reconnects attendance with learning. So kids and families are not just sending their kids to school by routine, but because they know learning is going to happen. They're going to be assessed. The teachers are going to know the progress. And this relatively simple reform changed behavior quickly and at scale. And as I noted, without children attending, the education system cannot even begin to do its job. Second big area. So the first is attendance. The second is class sizes. Class sizes are back to manageable levels. Huge decrease, particularly in primary schools where the pressure was the highest, from 63 to 41. No schools with classes of more than 100 students. And school principals, teachers confirmed that this was the case. And normally, in education systems, when attendance goes up, which I mentioned a moment ago, actually class sizes go up. As I've said before, I've had the privilege of studying and supporting education systems around the world, and I've never seen it go the other way. Attendance normally goes up, class sizes go up. So this tells us something quite important, and we get this from our analysis. This reform is not one change. It is a coordinated system effort. So what drove the reduction in class sizes? It has been mentioned, huge increase in classroom space through repurposing. And we heard from the teachers and leaders that this was the case. Expanding usable classroom spaces, repurposing underused spaces, redistributing students, nearly 100,000 additional spaces brought back into use. And I think it's really important to note this will have required the hard work of all members of the education community, because it was on the ground that this change really happened. Repurposing classrooms, reorganizing schools was a phenomenal effort, and we hope to learn more about some of the things that people did on the ground day in, day out to make that happen. And it's been noted that if we take the fact that on average, as indicated by the General Buildings Authority, one classroom costs around 2 million Egyptian pounds. So you can see this was done with the effort of people on the ground and leadership. It's a huge, huge cost saving. So the next big area, teacher shortages. Through different innovative means, all teaching posts were closed. Nearly 470,000 teaching posts were filled through redeployment, adjustable workloads, and additional staffing arrangements. Now, this does not mean that the long-term challenge is fully solved, and I'll return to the matter of the importance of investing in teachers later, but it does mean that every classroom and every course subject now has a teacher. And we know that teachers are also getting the training and support that they need. If I can go to the next slide. 70% of all teachers, nearly 80% of primary school teachers reported to us that they received training related to the reforms in the last year. It's a very high percentage that are getting the support. We know how important that is for teachers. And the training was on major areas of curriculum reform, in-class strategies, changes to the assessment system. And it was particularly important in primary, and I repeat the point about primary because primary schools was where the strain around attendance, around class sizes, around teachers was the biggest. And so the effort is being placed early where it can make the biggest difference. And what we think we feel from the data is as a result, teachers feel capable and supported. A major reform that has been noted is the number of curricular areas that have been revamped. 94, huge undertaking. And having seen curriculum reform in many different countries, curriculum reform is often the reform that faces resistance. I've seen it in other countries around the world. Curriculum changes are often resisted by teachers. Why? Because they're busy teaching a curriculum that they know well. If it changes, it's an initial difficult challenge. But actually, here in Egypt, teachers, leaders, and we've pulled out Arabic and Islamic educators, show very, very high rates of support for the curriculum reform, given how broad it is. Over 90% of school leaders say it's positive, over 80% say teachers are positive. That's unusually high. And this is genuine support for change. And that point about support for the reforms, which I've noted, is an important part of this story. Now, the key question is learning improving? And here we're beginning to see something very encouraging. Since 2024, UNICEF has been supporting the ministry to design and deliver a 60-hour remedial literacy program. The program has reached 1.3 million children in grades 3 to 6 and is showing really strong signs of impact. In the first phase alone, children participating in the program saw their Arabic literacy scores increase by over 50% in just 3 months. Now, just pause on that for a moment, because this is not just about numbers. Children who are at grade 3, 4, 5, and 6, who were struggling to read, those children who cannot read by that stage, even though they've been in schooling for 2, 3 years, their educational future is very uncertain. What the program has done is put those children back on track with their education. And importantly, we evaluated this program very carefully. We were able to show causal impact, a 17% improvement in learning outcomes for students in the program compared to a similar group who were not in the program. If I can go to the next slide. Now, as the program expands, and we're moving into all 27 governorates, 1.3 million students, 30,000 teachers, 3,000 schools, 3 phases, we are beginning to see promising signals at system level. And this is important, because this progress is not the result of just one literacy intervention, one program. What we're starting to see through our assessments of kids is a broader shift around learning. Why? Because children are back at school. Teachers are teaching in more manageable classrooms. Learning time has increased, curriculum has improved, and teacher support is expanding. And then when we bring targeted learning programs, they can succeed effectively. And together, these changes are creating the conditions where learning can recover and improve at scale. So where does this leave us? We are at a very particular moment. The system has restored attendance, stabilized classrooms, ensured teachers are present, invested in foundational learning and skills. But in my view, this is not the end of the reform. This is the end of the beginning. It is a unique moment for genuine education, system transformation that will require investment and focus of all to ensure the reforms deepen, are sustained. So what next? The evidence we collected from nearly 12,000 teachers, 2,500 school leaders, and the many, many hundreds of schools we visited give us some clear pointers of what is being said and where we need to go. And if we're going to ensure that these reforms stick and can be built upon, we need to listen to the views of teachers. What are they telling us? And what they are telling us is quite clear. First, incentives matter. School leaders and teachers consistently told us that the 1,000 Egyptian pound incentive was not a small detail. It was a critical part of the reform. It helped drive motivation, sustain effort, Without it, the system may not have held together over the past 2 years, given the pace of change. Second, the work that teachers do, the complexity of their job. Teachers are managing, and told us they're managing more assessments. And that's on top of an already busy schedule. Now, interestingly, what you can see on the slide is that when we compare the time teachers are spending on assessments with international benchmarks, teachers in Egypt are about the same. And the assessment is crucial for teaching and learning. So the real issue is not, shall we reduce assessments, but shall we and can we work with teachers to think about the overall expectation put on them so they can focus on what matters, the core role of teaching and learning. Third, professional development and workforce stability. We need to continue investing in teachers' skills through professional development, and we need to build clear pathways into the profession, particularly for the large number of per-session teachers that are supporting children's learning day in, day out. Because in the end, this is the reality. If teachers are strong, the system will hold. Second, we need to continue strengthening the system around teachers. There are 4 areas that really stand out from what we heard from teachers. First, monitoring support. School leaders spoke very clearly about the importance of the presence of the Minister, His Excellency, and the Ministry. And we saw very high numbers of visits from His Excellency, 612 in just 2 years, unprecedented. And nearly all school leaders saying that they'd received support directly to their school from the Ministry over this period, with over 50% saying they actually received support over 4 times or more. That kind of support is really important. The presence matters. It motivates school leaders and teachers. It signals seriousness, and it drives consistency in implementation. Second, learning interventions. We need to build on the strong early results of the learning program and scale that up nationally across all schools. Third, data and evidence. The Ministry of Education and Technical Education was very open in sharing its data with UNICEF to produce these results and allow us to show the confidence that we're showing in saying that real change has happened. Teachers, school leaders, schools themselves, through this process, were asked directly what they were experiencing. This is important, because when we actually get the full report of our study, we will not only have a story to celebrate, we will also have lessons to improve further. And this culture of evidence can go even deeper by listening not only to teachers and leaders, but also to parents and students. Finally, financing. With the government's commitment to increase pre-university financing in the coming financial year, 2026-2027, the key question is how that investment is used. It will be critical to invest in ways that help reform sticks, drive deeper learning for all children, especially the most marginalized. So yes, what we are seeing now is real progress with sustained investment. Let me close, if I can move to the very last slide, where we began. We are confident that the education system is being restored, and that confidence is based on evidence. Children are back in school, classrooms are functioning, teachers are present, and learning is beginning to recover. To achieve this, the effort from the Ministry and its partners have been immense. And importantly, parents and children have placed their trust in these changes. And so far, that trust is being rewarded. So this is a moment for genuine education system transformation, a moment to ensure that all young people in Egypt can develop, gain skills, and contribute to the economy and society. But this will not happen automatically. It will require continued investment, energy, and focus from all of us in this room and outside of this room. Government, international partners, civil society, private sector, education leaders, teachers, parents, and of course, as we see on the screen, children themselves. If that commitment is sustained, then this reform will not just improve schools, it will not just improve learning, it will help build the human capital and future of Egypt. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the UNICEF team, to Mr. Shiraz, to Dr. Marai, and to Ms. Wong for that comprehensive and compelling presentation. Having heard this evidence, we now turn to how Egypt is viewed from beyond its progress, from beyond its borders, by the international development partners who support education systems around the world and who have walked alongside Egypt on this journey. It is my pleasure to introduce this segment of reflections from the international community. We will hear from two distinguished speakers. First, from Ms. Asohi Igbik, Country Engagement Lead for Egypt at the Global Partnership for Education, one of the world's largest partnerships and funds dedicated to delivering quality education. Ms. Igbik, the floor is yours.
Your Excellency, Dr. Mostafa Madbouly, Prime Minister of the Arab Republic of Egypt. Your Excellency, Mr. Mohamed Abdel Latif, Minister of Education and Technical Education. Excellencies, other ministers here, leaders of governorates, esteemed guests from parliaments, excellencies from embassies, the international community, development partners, senior education leaders, private sector and foundations, members of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Salam alaikum and good morning to you all. My name is Esohe Eibike and I am Country Engagement Lead for Egypt from the Global Partnership for Education. I'm based in Nairobi. I give you warm greetings from the CEO of the GPE, Laura Frigenti, who is in Washington, D.C., and also from our board chairman, former President Kikwete. GPE's vision is a quality education for every child. It is a real pleasure and privilege to be with you all today and witness this vision being realized right here in Egypt. Since I started to work with the ministry and the partners just last year, one immediate thing that struck me was the sense of urgency to transform the system at pace and deliver for children. I have asked myself on several occasions, do these people sleep? The results presented just now are impressive. Significant improvements in student attendance, high levels of teacher and head teacher engagement, additional classroom spaces, reduced class sizes, more teachers, more time for learning, improving the curriculum, providing books, and ultimately improving the learning of students, all in the last 2 years. These results, the breadth and the depth of them, as we heard, the coordinated system effort that was mentioned, have shown a commitment to deliver where it matters most for children, which is at classroom level. Congratulations, Your Excellency, Abdel Latif, and your team. Your sleepless nights are paying off. Egypt's engagement with the Global Partnership for Education started in 2021 with supporting the ministry and the partners to develop the education sector analysis and the education sector plan. In addition, the ministry and the partners have self-assessed, various enabling factors to improve the education system. The use of data and evidence, the extent to which planning and budgeting is gender responsive, the extent to which the sector can be coordinated better, and of course, domestic financing for education. And they have identified areas to improve, and you see improvements happening. Egypt is also an active participant of the GPE-supported Knowledge and Innovation Exchange, which funds applied research and peer learning opportunities across countries in the Middle East and Africa and North Africa. I can tell you that the results that you are generating and will continue to generate will be of great interest to other countries in the partnership, so please expect yourselves to be inundated with other countries seeking to learn from you. Just 4 months ago, the GPE approved a system capacity grant to the Ministry of Education and Technical Education to support these improvements. Throughout, the ministry has emphasized your focus on improving foundational learning and the skills for life and work for children and young people. Finishing this survey that you've heard the results of was one of the first critical activities we're pleased to have supported in this GPE grant, which is managed by UNICEF, and I again congratulate the government and people of Egypt for the achievements we have heard today. As was said earlier, the global evidence is absolutely clear on the economic importance of children learning foundational skills and young people having the skills for life and work. Education is an investment that delivers returns for individuals, families, and returns which propel economic growth. To deliver the vision of a quality education for every child, GPE's mission is to mobilize partnerships and investments that transform education systems. Last year, we kicked off the GPE 2030 financing campaign at the UN General Assembly, and the campaign will culminate in a high-level moment at the UN General Assembly this year. With the theme of multiplying possibilities, we are seeking to raise $5 billion to help leverage an additional $10 billion to support education system transformation in all our 92 partner countries, including Egypt. GPE supports sustainable financing for education, which has domestic financing at its core. Today, we have heard Egypt's commitment to improving delivery and efficiency of domestic financing for education. The results we have seen clearly demonstrate the country's commitment to making a difference for children. And as I said earlier, they also demonstrate Egypt's leadership in the region to deliver better for children. We commend your efforts, and we urge the government to build on these results and continue to invest in education to achieve sustained and equitable impact. Today's results show that when you invest in improving teaching and learning, you see the results. We recognize that many GPE partner countries are looking to mobilize additional financing to support their education priorities. And we in GPE support these efforts by asking our partner countries to develop what we call a partnership compact. This is an opportunity to strengthen and more strategically align partnerships and complementary support from various non-state actors and multilateral actors in cash and in kind behind the ministry's priorities. We look forward to engaging with you on these and other efforts in the coming months. In closing, I must thank His Excellency, the Prime Minister, His Excellency, the Minister for Education and Technical Education, for convening this event to take stock of this milestone moment in Egypt's education transformation journey. Thank you for your unwavering commitment, your leadership, and your sense of urgency to deliver better for children. Let me also thank the leadership of the governorates, all your officials, your teachers, your parents, and your children. They may not all be here today, But as we heard, all this effort would not have been possible without their commitment and their support. I hope that in the coming months, as you delve deeper into your transformation journey and what has worked to build on and improve it, you will continue to listen to the voices of the people in your system at every level. I also want to thank the education development partners, national and international non-government actors, including private sector and foundations, who are supporting the ministry with evidence-based approaches to transform the education system to deliver better for children. And of course, I want to thank the leadership and education team of UNICEF for their ongoing support to the ministry, for working with us as a grant agent for the system capacity grant. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Asohi, for your words and reflections. It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Mahmoud Mohyeldin, the United Nations Special Envoy on Financing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. He is also a distinguished Egyptian economist whose career has bridged national leadership and global development finance. Dr. Mohyeldin, the floor is yours.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. دولة رئيس مجلس الوزراء، معالي وزير التربية والتعليم الفني، معالي الوزراء، السادة السفراء، السادة النواب، قيادات التعليم والبحث العلمي.
Dear guests, dear professors, the members of the UN and the teaching institution, I am honored to meet the Secretary General of the Arab League, and allow me at the beginning to thank all for this great invitation and the value that to Mr. Prime Minister for participating in this event, which is reflecting the importance given by the government for the issue of education and its importance. And I would like to appreciate the efforts exerted by Minister of Education and Technical Education, Mr. Mohamed Abdel Latif, for the efforts exerted for implementing the reforms for the educational institution and their effort to provide the children and youth with proper education and have a better future for themselves and for the nation. And I thank and appreciate the team of UNICEF in Egypt, on top of them Ms. Natalia, and the team of the UN and our international partners for technical support and strategic support. After the team in the UN they offered a speech with some points that were included in the report, and as usual, as I am a risk taker, I won't follow the statement or the speech, and I would like just to mention every now and then, because what was highlighted by my colleague, of course, I have to reflect to. There was a report which is concerned about the future of the state and the people in Egypt. So I know the importance of the other report from the other international institutions throughout the past years, from the World Bank and the UN, and I know the importance of these reports, which show the importance given to the responsible on the economy but there is no report at all about the future of the nation, like the importance and investment in education and health, which we are talking about, education. This report is giving us optimism that the students are returning to school. This is the season to return to school. Also, it is giving some demands on how this return would be good. The return is a start. Without it, we cannot reform the education, the style of education, improve the style of education. We are not talking only about reform of education, but the future of development in Egypt. States do not build their future by infrastructure only, in spite of its importance, vital importance, but by building the person. Investing in education is not an element which is not important. I met with the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Planning, and they said that the outcome of spending in the state budget for this fiscal year in planning investment improved than before, and the health and education were top priority in this, as they are the most important domains. Simply, if it's not in the state budget, so there is nothing. If it's not a priority in the state budget, so it doesn't exist. Simply. So there is an importance for the numbers in the state budget. The importance of education, we have aims for development, one of the most important, but also during the past period from 2000 to 2015, it was the importance given to the basis in the education and schools, but from 2015 it was the type of education, the way of education in schools. What happened that Egypt succeeded during from 2000 to 2015, so there were the reform in the basic education. But the main challenge after 2015 is not only educating students in schools. The philosophy Russell said that education is not as filling a bowl with water, but help on development and flourish by independence thinking, and to have the will for knowledge and learning continuously. And I have to mention here, when I read what Mr. Russell said, I remembered my professors, my great professor in early education in Egypt. I cannot forget Mr. Muhammad al-Sabah from Kafr Shukr, who taught me. I cannot forget Mr. Taim, Ms. Layla Mansour and Layla Sharif, who taught me the basis for forgiveness before the principle of learning. Mr. Minshawi, who guided me for the library way, and Ms. Nadia Wahba, who guided me to the Dar al-Kutub. And after that, Mr. Great, Mr. Dignified for our generation, Mr. Muhammad al-Banna. These names only my colleague would know, but for all these names for my generation are having others, and we are always loyal to them and grateful for them in our lives. Without them, we would not have learned in this way, because we were next to them. It is a communication with the professors and the knowledge, but we are facing an improvement, but there are a long way that we are starting. Even with this report, which is very authentic, when I talked with Mr. of Education, I told him, you have still, and we have in front of the teamwork, a great challenge, a great mission to convince the people and the followers of the results of that report about these positive results, which are astonishing. But it would be followed by some indication that it is the start of the way, not the end of the way. This report is good, very reasonable, but it's not enough. It's not enough to contain just positive income, but still, we are looking to other report of the World Bank about the Human Capital Index. This report is compiling education and health and guidance for the workplace, work market. We have to deal with report in different ways. Egypt witnessed 160. The maximum that no one reached in this number is 625. No state did reach. Egypt is 161. If I take this number and compare Egypt with the regional partners, regional states, Northern Africa and Afghanistan and Pakistan, this number in this area is 147. The responsible on that sector said, be optimistic, we are better than others. We are exceeding. But some others would say, what are we doing in comparing to other less developed countries? This tranche was 156. We are better than others, but the serious states we should be of do not take approximate numbers or the tranche, but they are looking for the better performers. And this is a new world that throughout the past 15 years we are saying to the people, the world is moving east, where China, Japan, Korea and Vietnam and others. The first state, Japan, 282. The second state, Singapore, 282. The east, the west was Netherlands, number 3, 271. Egypt is 161. America, 252. UK, 261, and Vietnam, 216, and Egypt is 161. And as the way that the decision maker is taking is a matter of choice. Are we accepting to be average, which is good and acceptable, and it is helping to be relaxed? The people of education did not sleep for this because of this report, but the people of education and health and and education markets, if did not were not guided by regional performance, that would lead to other time. We are in a very changing world, so I have to look to the better always, and the better in the east. There are some in the west as well which are performing well, but I have to look to the east. I have to say that the 19th century, of course, it was the Industrial Revolution. The 20th was American century for education and industrialization. This century that we are witnessing, the second half of it is, of course, the Asian, and on top of which is China. So there is a study that the improvement of the performance had 47% of the teachers, and there are good numbers, and decrease the capacity of the school classes by 46% to 38 students in 2025-2026. A very important point, benefit from the vacancies, and 744 vacancies were used in the classes to improve the capacity of the classes in the schools in an academic year. And 81% of the teachers, they showed the positive reaction on that. So we should base our judgment on that regarding reforming the performance, improving the education, starting with the principle of improving the education itself, the existence of the teachers, as the report mentioned, but the start of the road, not the end of the road. At the same time, I would like to say that the study itself is showing that the improvement in education is still representing the main coming challenge. It is not a deficiency, but it is showing that it is running by professionalism. I didn't know about my colleague in UNICEF any compliments. They are very fair and they are very neutral, and these data are showing that. We have today more than 25 million in pre-university education. We have to look to them. These could be great strengths or great pressure to teach them how to develop their skills, and I am thinking that we will succeed. We were working on that. What the Nobel Education for Economy enablers, technology and incentives, they do change the behavior. Without these, nothing would change in any field. We fight poverty, and that's why she took the Nobel Prize. That doesn't need the Nobel laureate, but we need, we don't need that. But Dr. Ahmed Al-Ghandour used to say at the University of Economics and Political Science that for change we have funding, technology and incentives. Without that we cannot, without that the team with the Minister of Education cannot reach what they are looking for. If the international experience would give model, India used developmental funding with the governmental funding. Minister of Finance, Minister of Education, Central Bank Governor, if they need to work together with the Prime Minister to have guidelines on how to see the Indian experience and have some directives. Also Brazil used some funding for that. Indonesia used, Morocco used some mechanism for education reform and the digital transformation. Yet an example is remaining. As the Prime Minister is looking to, we have a problem, a real problem in the issue of debt. And it is consuming a part of the state budget and our revenues. And I was looking forward that what is spent on education and health would exceed what we are spending on services for paying the debts. But we are improving to contain the debt with focusing on containing, with dealing the debt issue. There is an experience from Ivory Coast to refund 400 million euro as in trade debt, which of course 40 million euros were taken for reforming some schools. Debt swap or exchange of debts. It's not only for financing the climate, as we hosted the COP27, not only for the climate, but this way can be used, and the World Bank is having a good example for that. So we need finance, partnership with international institutions for development, tools, and national funds, and that all should be within the state budget. When I talk about technology and funding, one element remains very important, who is the teacher. Without proper teachers and continuous training and good salaries and incentives, so the Minister of Education said that there is an improvement, which is to improve the salaries of teachers in Egypt, and I hope one day the teacher in the school and a member of the staff in university is having great salaries according to priorities that we have seen in other countries like Singapore and Finland. I would end with, if all that is happening and the report did not tackle what we will do in the digital transformation world and AI. And I would wrap up my speech with that. The report of Stanford University and the World Bank, and I would focus on the World Bank report because they have a number which is IMF, how we are ready for digital transformation for AI. We need 4 things. First, invest in the business, in the capital. The AI would not eliminate the humans, so we should develop the skills, as the President said a few days ago in the report about improving the performance and the skills and the infrastructure of the digital world. Minister of Information and Technology and Telecommunication. The second point. The third point, the retraining in order to be capable to deal with digital transformation and AI. And the final is the governance and ethics. I know that the deputy of the Secretary General of the UN, they have report about the ethics of and governance of the AI. And if we talk about AI, the Prime Minister, ministers, ladies and gentlemen, people are in heart. I talked about the Nobel laureate in economy. Another Nobel laureate talked about the development could not happen except with 3, not with wealth, not with land, not with capital, but people, ideas, and other things. People, their ideas, and then other things after the capital and lands. We are I assert again that we are in front of a very important report for one of the most important topics for the future of our society, which is the most important, which is the reform of, which is better economically. And education is not a service sector, but it is the best investment for the future of Egypt and its plan for development and stability and competitiveness in the coming decades. And I'm sure that if Egypt wants, so with God's will, no challenge would hinder what we want. Egypt never wants but the best. Thank you so much.
For that very thoughtful and compelling address. We now turn to UNICEF's own perspectives on what this transformation means for the children in Egypt and on the path ahead. It is my pleasure to invite Ms. Natalia Windarossi, UNICEF representative in Egypt, to deliver her address, Transforming Education, a Brighter Future for Children in Egypt. Ms. Windarossi, the floor is yours.
Excellency Dr. Mostafa Madbouly, Prime Minister of the Arab Republic of Egypt, Excellency Mr. Mohammed Abdel Latif, Minister of Education and Technical Education, Excellencies, members of the Cabinet, members of the Parliament, Secretary General of the League of Arab States, Dr. Mahmoud Mohain, UN Special Envoy on Financing the 2030 Agenda, representative from the Global Partner of Education, development partners, members of the press, distinguished guests. Sabah al-Hir, Alhan wa Saham Bigamia. It is an honor to stand before you today at this important moment, milestone for education reform in Egypt. Allow me first and foremost to warmly thank His Excellency, the Prime Minister, for honoring us with his presence today, and to express our deepest appreciation to the government of Egypt for its continuous leadership and commitment to every child and young people in this country. Your Excellency, your presence today sends a powerful message to the whole nation, a message that is saying that education is not simply a sectoral priority, but central to Egypt's development, prosperity, stability, and long-term progress. I would also like to express UNICEF's deepest appreciation to His Excellency the Minister of Education and Technical Education for its vision, leadership, energy, and unwavering efforts for advancing education reform across the country. We also would like to acknowledge the presence and contribution of all our partners, including the United Nations Country Team, the Global Partnership for Education, whose continued support in helping advance children's rights and development has been critical to get to where we're here today. Today is about far more than education reform. It's about the future Egypt is building through its children and young people. And it reflects a simple but very powerful truth. Strong education systems build strong nations. Excellencies, we've heard today that over the past 2 years, Egypt has embarked in one of the most ambitious education reform in the region. And let me say this very clear, Egypt deserves real recognition for what it has achieved. Transforming an education system at scale is not easy. It requires leadership, it requires persistence, and it requires a belief. The belief that every child, regardless of backgrounds, geography, or circumstance, deserves the opportunity to succeed. And Egypt has risen to that challenge, translating a vision into action and real reform that is really making a change for every child in this country. Earlier, we had the privilege to presenting the findings from a rapid assessment of education reform implementation, an assessment that we proudly led in close coordination with the Ministry of Education and Technical Education, and with critical, valuable contributions from teams across our United Nations family. The findings presented today are not only about isolated improvements, but to a real momentum in the education system. Only a few years ago, the Comprehensive Education Sector Analysis of 2024 highlighted a system under pressure. The challenges were significant, but Egypt chose to move forward. And today, these are encouraging signs that the reforms are the beginning of a critical change and a learning experience for children across Egypt. More children are attending schools, classrooms are becoming less crowded, teachers report feeling more supported, foundational learning is improving, and curriculum reforms are gaining positive traction across both communities, schools, and the whole ecosystem of education. These are not small shifts. These are early signs of real transformation. But beyond every figure, and we've seen a lot of numbers and a lot of graphs today, I think it's important that we remember that these figures also represent the life experience of a child. And sometimes the real meanings of reform is really best understood through the voice of a child. We've been gathering all of those expressions from Teachers for Communities, but also from children themselves that were able to experience the changes that were implemented. Voices that said, before I joined the program, I was facing difficulties with reading and writing. Now I can write well, I read stories, and I feel proud of myself. And this is not a quote that I just took out from a study. I've been privileged to be able to also witness and meet many of the students in classrooms with big smiles as they feel accomplished when they can read with pride their books and their stories. Teachers also very proud of being part and owning this transformation, sharing that before they were shy or afraid of making mistakes, but now they see that their children are ready to raise their hands, to participate, and to believe in themselves. This is not just about reading and writing, this is about pride and confidence. And this is what real progress looks like. Children believing in themselves and beginning to see the possibility of their future. And this is something crucial. This is the main ingredient to see national transformation and commitment. Year after year, Egypt has continued to prioritize investment in education, recognizing its central importance to the country's long-term development. And this is why it will remain a central pillar of the partnership between the government of Egypt and the United Nations, and at the heart of UNICEF's long-standing commitment to supporting the realization of every child's right to education. And reforms do not happen by chance. They require strategic partnerships, shared responsibility across government, UN partners, development partners, governorates, local education administrators, teachers, families, communities, an ecosystem that allows reform to happen in real time. Excellence and distinguished guests, education reform is not just about improving systems. It is about preparing young people to be the future leaders of this country, and ultimately about the future strength and prosperity of the country. Looking ahead, we see 4 priorities that remain critical. First, continued investment in education with strong planning, equitable allocation, and relentless focus on the results for children. Second, to continue to prioritize the importance of foundational learning, because when children gain strong literacy, numeracy, and social emotional skills early, it definitely changes the trajectory of their lives. Third, to continue to invest in those teachers, Teachers that remain at the heart of transformation and continued investment in supporting and empower them so they're also part and owning the reforms that we're here very proudly supporting. And fourth, very critically, to continue to pursue smart digital transformation, using technology not only for its own sake, but also to strengthen teaching, learning, and expand the opportunity for every child. As UNICEF, together with the UN system, we remain fully committed to supporting the government in this journey, working alongside the ministry and everybody in this room, I hope, to continue to realize children's full potential. I am delighted to congratulate Egypt on being selected among the first cohort of countries globally to receive targeted technical assistance and supplementary funding and under UNICEF's Global Digital Education and AI strategy, which includes over $1 million over 2 years to support strategic digital education interventions. And this is a recognition of the leadership, the vision, and commitment. As I close, a few takeaways that for me are been very important. Today is not only about an assessment. This assessment matters because it's given us the evidence that we need to know that the journey has started and that the change is underway. And perhaps even more importantly, the confidence that far greater progress is still ahead. Today, Egypt is demonstrating that this progress is possible, that reforms at scale are possible, and that the rights and potential of every child can be realized. So we continue to commit to this journey. Let us continue to build an education system that matches the talent, the potential, and the aspirations of Egypt's children and young people. And if we continue on this path with leadership, with partnership, with energy and sustained commitment, it will not only strengthen its education system, but the overall economic and social journey. I thank you very much. Shukran Gasira.
Thank you, Ms. Winder Rossi, for your important and forward-looking message, and for reaffirming UNICEF's steadfast partnership with Egypt. We will now watch a short video of the National Arabic Literacy Program led by the Ministry of Education and Technical Education and in collaboration with UNICEF Egypt.
Minister, we acknowledge all that you have already published, and we acknowledge all the very important figures. So since the beginning of your mandate, we should acknowledge as UNESCO the progress made in, of course, the reduction of the number of students in classrooms and the reduction of the overcrowding kind of a situation within the teaching and learning spaces, and the way in which, of course, in an unprecedented way, we needed to communicate to the rest of the international community that in Egypt, you achieve 87% of attendance in your classroom. So UNESCO acknowledged and UNESCO recognized what does it mean in terms of an effort. And of course, as you know, you can count on us to continue even improving this rate.
بقيت أقرأ وبقيت أكتب أحسن وبقيت أحل أي حاجة. الحمد لله بقينا نقرأ ونكتب. اتعلمت كتير وبقيت أعرف أقرأ وأكتب.
لما حضر البرنامج دوت بقى يستهجى حتى لو في أي كلمة على التلفزيون بيستهجاها وبيقراها.
برنامج اداني حماس، اداني إحساس أكتر بالأطفال.
لما كنت بشرح مثلا المنهج كان هم يعني بحس إن هم مش متفاعلين مع زيهم زي زمايلهم. فأنا كان نفسي إن هم يتعاملوا زيهم زي باقي الفصل.
نفسي أشوف بنتي أحسن حد في الدنيا وربنا يوفقها ويوفق كل الناس يا رب.
عايزاها تبقى أحسن فوق الخيال يعني.
It is my honor to invite His Excellency Mr. Mohammed Abdul Latif, Minister of Education and Technical Education, to deliver his address, Reforming the Education System, the Present and the Future. Your Excellency, sincere congratulations on these remarkable achievements. The floor is yours.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
In the name of God Almighty, Dr. Mostafa Madbouly, the Prime Minister, ministers, representative of the UN and UN organizations and UNICEF, ladies and gentlemen, attendees. We meet today in this event which came as the fruit of cooperation between the Egyptian government and the other organizations specialized for serving and giving real outcome through study which is drawing a better future and meet the demands and requirements of the new republic. And at the start of that, I would like to thank the Egyptian leadership, President of the Republic of Egypt, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, for his support, endless support, which was the reason behind achieving what we did reach, for building a generation which have the tools of the generation. And I would like to thank the Prime Minister, Dr. Mostafa Madbouly, for attending today to witness the outcome of our effort and for his support for all our decisions and measures and the follow-up for many schools in different governorates in Egypt, asserting of the Egyptian state following on the education. Allow me to thank all the teachers of Egypt. I would like to thank every teacher, woman and man who were pillars for education. The education starts with the teacher. He's the brain of reform and the heart. And you were having the burden of reform. With your effort, we'll continue our path. Words are not enough to thank you. You will always remain the pillar in building a better future. I would like to thank and appreciate the UNICEF. Allow me to speak in English.
We extend our sincere appreciation to UNICEF for its unwavering partnership, remarkable dedication, and tireless efforts in advancing education and supporting children across Egypt. This collaboration stands as a powerful reminder that meaningful and lasting progress is achieved when the United Nations and national governments work hand in hand, united by shared purpose and collective responsibility. Together, through trust, partnership, and common vision for every child's future, we have proved that international cooperation is not merely an aspiration, but a catalyst for real and measurable change. Thank you so much. السيدات والسادة,
The reform of education in Egypt is not a future vision or ambition, but it became a reality, tangible reality. And it is supported by a national strategy, clear national strategy for being competitive and having a better future for generations who are capable to face the challenges. Throughout more than 20 months, and under the leadership of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, wise direction, and the support of the Egyptian government, Egypt started to have one of the most bold reform of education program in its modern history. We exceeded this reform more than just expanding in education to reshape the education system from what the students are taught and how to measure the core of education. It is not only knowledge, but the skills and values and proper skills for succeeding in a very fast developing world. Each generation needs different skills which should be reflected on the education system and building of the personality to be balanced and to be affected positively to affect positively in the society based on the change in the world market. And education should not be slow in facing change. We witness development for the curricula according to the latest technology and expanding in digital transformation and building new schools and new infrastructure for technology. And in that regard, the ministry had a reform agenda to all the elements of education, focusing on the performance and justice and the priority of national development and the world market demands. We have an environment for education, for that education is the aim, and the teacher would see the results. And the ministry is having great support from the government and improving the living standard of the teachers and the specialization. So the teachers have the right for the better. They are the real pillar and the real drive for any reform program in educational system. And the ministry gave training and developing the skills. So it developed a program with international standard in cooperation with universities, and the developing and reform of the programs and of the curricular upon educational philosophy for more developed education. The secondary education witnessed great development through developing its system and introducing new technologies which allow many opportunities for the student to fulfill their demand and ease the tension on them and on their families. We signed with the IBO an agreement for reviewing the baccalaureate. We exceeded this agenda, the education, to represent real national investment in the human capital and the cohesion of the society on long-term basis. In that context, the executive organ also is following these development in education, and the sources of the word is very important. Word is very important, will always remain to build an education system which is capable to build a good personality and for development, for technology and creativity. We look forward for people who are capable to be in cohesion with the speedy changes, for building a generation capable to deal with AI. They have the education of e-economy. And at the end, I would like to say the responsibility of building the person is the most difficult, and that would remain throughout different generation and time. What is benefiting people remain on earth, according to Holy Quran.
And for the Ministry's unwavering commitment to the children in Egypt. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we now arrive at the most distinguished moment of our program. It is my profound honor to invite His Excellency, Dr. Mostafa Madbouly, Prime Minister of Egypt, to deliver his address, Investment in Education for Economic Development. Your Excellency, Mr. Prime Minister, we are deeply honored by your presence and we listen with the highest respect to your address.
By the name of God Almighty, Minister Mohammed Abdul Latif, Minister of Education and Technical Education, the dear ministers and members of the House of Representatives and Parliament, Mr. Ambassadors and representatives of the international organization, welcome and peace be upon you. I am honored to meet you in that event, which is reflecting the importance, the continuous importance of the path of development in one of the most important pillars of development, which is education and personality building, which is reflecting the responsibility of the state to move on in supporting the reform and continue what has been achieved from developing the education system and its effect on having a generation who are capable to cope with the future and change. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt that education is the main guide for sustainable development and competitiveness and build economy based on knowledge and creativity. The goodness of education, the performance, is the guidance for measuring the strength of nation, not only from the efficiency of the educational system, but how to get the generation ready to cope with the changes, the fast changes in technology and economy and the world market on the international level. In that context, the Egyptian state is looking for education as national security and a pillar axis for building the new republic based on our obligation that a real investment is starting by building the person and develop his capability on intellectual, educational, cultural level, as it is the main wealth of the future of the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, the Egyptian state adopted by the leadership of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the President of the Republic, the vision of reform to develop the education system, which is based on building the path of education to cope with international standards and to develop the creativity and thinking and lead to the building of a proper citizen who is capable of dealing with this change. The government started to develop a national program for reform for education based on supporting the infrastructure of education and more effective. It witnessed throughout the past years expansion in building reforms for the creativity and linking the education system for the development and world market. In the heart of that vision, the teacher, the Egyptian teacher, is always present. He is a pillar, the first pillar for the education system and the main element for building the conscious and knowledge. So the Egyptian state was always keen on supporting him and giving him the proper training. Investment in the teacher is investment in the future of the nation. Also, the state was keen on expanding the partnerships with international institutions and the organization to benefit from their expertise and to have their experience with the protection of our national identity, which is increasing the capability of the state institution for developing the education and the demand of reform. Ladies and gentlemen, this event comes as it is asserting the agenda based on scientific research and based on our judgment as tools for the sustainability of reform and reaching its goals, which is supporting the state capability to to develop the education policies based on indices and elements within that. Allow me to assert that what we have seen today of numbers in the report, which is coming from an international institution, which is very authentic and neutral and independent in evaluating the index of education in Egypt. We are happy from what we have achieved in that phase. Here, allow me to talk from my heart. The Egyptian state witnessed many challenges throughout the past 15 years. Many revolutions, instability because of terrorism, which is against the Egyptian state, with challenges and international challenges and problems and crises that we are till this moment in the heart of these crises and problems, not alone but the whole world. But in spite of all this, Egypt adopted a dream and hope to build the new republic, which is for the child, the youth, the Egyptian boy and girl that we all looking to as they are the future of the nation. This generation is the generation, like my generation knows that what we are doing in that time, which would bear the fruit in another phase, maybe probably we won't see as here. I would like to assert on many important points not to forget. When President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi started, the President of the Republic started his dream of the new republic and invited all the Egyptian citizens to participate in that dream, we put the education as a top priority for the state. Education, health, and other indicators. Here I would like to talk about the education, pre-university and university education. The pre-education of university, in that period, we had an organization which deteriorated throughout decades and a long time. The state was not capable to invest in building more schools. They were not capable to decrease the number of students in classrooms. I would like to talk about a personal experience when I was at schools, and it was a governmental school. So I was in one of the school of the good students at the beginning of the 80s. We talked about more than 40 years, maybe 45 years. From 45 years, we were saying we were 42, 43 million citizens, and the schools at that time, the high skilled students were 40. Today, 110 million citizens. If we calculated, thank God, according to studies, the Egyptian state succeeded to decrease the percentage of the number of students in classes. So the state was capable throughout the period to have ready the infrastructure to contain that number of students with the increase in population. It is not a school or building, it is the performance, the quality of education. I would like to clarify that the state adopted a strategy to cope with the changes, which is very fast on the international front, and we should admit the leaps of technology, the great development throughout the past 10 years, the past decade was different than what happened 20 to 30 years ago. It was normal that the curriculum remain for 5, 10, 15 years in the 80s and 70s and 90s. There were no major changes. But today, every year, there is something new. And there is something new that we have to add to our students, because they, not to say that they are illiterate in artificial intelligence, in governance, in to have all what's needed for the world market. So I am seeing clearly these 10 years needed great effort because the speed changes. So I would stop here. That to what came in the report, the country succeeded to decrease the standard and the amount of children who have difficulty in learning, 45.5% to 14%. The most important, that today the presence in classrooms became 87% from 15% today. As I said, the percentage was 63 students in class, and I entered schools as I started my post. There were more than 100 students in the classroom. In some areas, there were 120 students in the classroom. Whatever was the effort exerted by the student, how we can cope with 120. Today, I'm keen in all field visits to visit schools, and I stay for a long time with the students and talk to them and listen to them. The most important is indirectly, I like to tell all students, tell me, I like to joke with my colleague, the Minister of Education, to visit a school which was not in the visit. Thank God, what I am seeing today, there is great improvement in the level and standard of containment. And I know how the teachers were enthusiastic that the students are back to school and how they are dealing with the teachers. The report asserted that it was a leap, the return of students to schools, that not only that what we are aiming for, it is just a start, the start of developing, returning our students to the best level of education. That's what we all admit of. We want the best. We are not the best at the moment, but we are aware of the challenge. It is the first steps for success, to admit what we have, the challenge that we have, and work. We have to work hard to improve the education. Our hope that everyone should come out from this country learned in a good way. It is a real investment that would lead to the success of the state. We learned numbers, we heard numbers, that Egypt was ranked 161. And I would like to assure you all that we are not satisfied with that number. The highest in our region, as it was said, it's one of the best states in our situation. That number would increase in the coming period. We learned numbers for other states, China, Singapore, Malaysia. As Dr. Mahmoud Muhaddin said, the future is the East. I like to assert that. We are looking to the success of these countries with admiration and respect, but at the same time, we are all as Egyptians should see that these states, to reach that number in the index, they worked hard, continuously for tens of years. China, to reach that, in that position, 45 years of hard, endless work. Singapore, a small state, island, 5 million citizens, 20 years of hard work to be able to reach what they reached. Malaysia, all the states that we are hearing about, the least was 20 years of hard work. Egypt today, for sure, we are working and we are having an experience in 10 years of hard work within international challenges and struggles, a very complicated situation, but we are working hard and we are moving in our direction for reform to be capable to reach as the fastest time and the least time to reach the index that the number that we have heard in a world before was not witnessing such struggles and crises. So the state is knowledgeable about, in spite of all the challenges of the funding that we are facing still, and it will, this sector of education and health are the best in reform, and with all the funding given by the state given to these special two sectors. I would like to talk about higher education. 10 years ago, the number of universities in Egypt were 50 universities. Correct me, Dr. Abdelaziz. And the criteria for 1 million citizens, we should have one university. 10 years ago, we had 50 universities. Today, we have how many? More than 120. The issue is not only buildings. We are looking to the universities, which was in the present vision. The big number is the governmental universities. To cope with the new technology, the new science, we have technological universities, national universities. We encourage the private sector, the international universities, and to be present in Egypt. So we should back to better indication and better indices on the international standard. We would see an increase in the presence of Egyptian universities, which is replacing and having good position among these international universities. Is that enough? No, of course. It is the start of a road. And we should be aware that this matter would take time, and we are working on it. We are continuing our work, whatever are the challenges. We will continue our reform because we believe in that for a better future for the state. I would like to mention these points because we should be happy for what we have reached and what we have seen in this report. But the most important, and I talked to the Minister of Education, the continuity of these numbers and its improvement. If we reach that, I am concerned that after a year we would see an improvement. As I told you, the education reform is a path of accumulation for long term, and it has sustainability for the institutional reform for all the concerned body, for the institution, the NGOs, and our partners on the international, regional fronts. to reach the success of education and educational reform strategy, which is linked to the capability to work in partnership to have great impact on investment. And at the end, I value all the efforts exerted by the Ministry of Education and Technical Education and the Egyptian teacher, who is the hero in that phase, which the state is building on for a better education, and the state would never be reluctant to offer any effort. And the President is keen, and the Egyptian government is keen to give incentives to increase salaries, to give incentive for other, like no other institution in the state. I would like to thank all our partners of development and national and international institutions for their effort in reform and institutional reform and sharing their expertise on the technical and scientific level for supporting Egypt in its reform program. May God protect Egypt and help its citizens for the best. Thank you and goodbye.
Your Excellency, Mr. Prime Minister, on behalf of every person in this room, thank you. Your words today carry the full weight of Egypt's national commitment. You have reminded us that investing in education is not an expenditure. It is the most strategic investment a nation can make in its own future. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the close of our formal program. Shukran jazilan. Thank you.